laugh hit first, loud, careless, and sharp enough to slice through the stale air of the bus. It came from behind me, followed by the scrape of boots against the floor and the low hum of men who had learned to enjoy their own cruelty. I didn't turn around. I stared at my reflection in the rain-blurred window instead. A quiet man with tired eyes and a German shepherd sitting perfectly still at his feet. Her ears twitched once. That was all. The bus rattled forward, coughing diesel smoke into the night, every bump echoing through my bones. A voice leaned closer, close enough that I could smell cheap alcohol and damp fabric. "What's with the dog?" he said, laughing again. "You scared to ride alone?" Another shove rocked the seat. Someone kicked the metal pole beside me just to hear it ring. My hand slid down instinctively, fingers brushing the thick fur at my side. Warm, solid, steady. She didn't growl. She didn't move. She waited for my breath, for my signal, for the line she was trained never to cross without permission. They saw a quiet man. They saw a dog. What they didn't see was the years buried beneath my silence, or the badge hidden beneath my jacket, or the truth resting calmly at my feet, trained, loyal, and very aware that danger had just chosen the wrong bus. The bus doors folded shut with a tired hiss, sealing the night inside. Rain streaked down the windows in uneven lines, catching the yellow streetlights and stretching them into trembling veins of light. The engine groaned as if it resented moving at all. Every vibration traveled up through the floor and into my boots, into my bone. I sat near the middle, shoulders relaxed on purpose, eyes forward, practicing the kind of stillness that doesn't invite questions. At my feet sat Kira. She was a German shepherd, full-grown, broad-chested, her coat dark and clean despite the weather. She didn't sprawl or fidget. She didn't sniff the air or watch strangers with nervous eyes. She sat straight, aligned perfectly with my legs, her back tall, her head level, her presence contained. Anyone who knew dogs would have recognized it immediately. This was not a pet's posture. This was discipline. Her breathing was slow and measured, each inhale quiet, each exhale controlled. I could feel the warmth of her body through my trousers, grounding, familiar. My hand rested lightly on her shoulder, not gripping, not signaling, just existing there, the way it had 1,000 times before. She leaned into the contact almost imperceptibly, a subtle transfer of weight that said she knew exactly where I was. The first laugh came from behind us. It wasn't joyful, it wasn't surprised, it was practiced, a sound sharpened by repetition, used often enough that it no longer carried effort. It cut through the low hum of the engine and bounced off the metal walls of the bus. Kira's ears flicked once, just once, then settled back into place. Her eyes didn't move. She didn't tense. She simply listened. Boots scraped against the floor. Someone shifted closer. The smell reached me before the words did. Cheap alcohol, wet fabric, sweat that hadn't dried properly. The city outside blurred past, rain and concrete dissolving together. Inside, the air thickened. "Hey," a voice said, too loud, too close. "You know dogs aren't supposed to be on buses like this, right?" I didn't turn around. Years ago I had learned that looking back could be taken as permission. Silence, on the other hand, confused people. It forced them to choose their next move without feedback. Kira understood this better than anyone. She stayed still, her spine aligned, her tail resting on the floor without a twitch. Another laugh joined the first. Someone kicked the pole beside my seat, metal ringing sharp and hollow. A woman near the front glanced back, then quickly looked away. A man tightened his grip on the strap above him. No one spoke. I slid my hand a fraction lower, fingers brushing the dense fur along Kira's neck. The texture was familiar, coarse on top, softer underneath, alive with restrained strength. Her breathing remained steady. No growl, no warning, just awareness. To them she was just a dog. They couldn't see the hours she had spent motionless in dark alleys, waiting for a sound that didn't come. They couldn't see the way she tracked fear before it announced itself, how her body read tension the way others read words. They couldn't see the discipline etched into her muscles, the obedience that wasn't submission but trust. One of them leaned closer. I felt the seat shift as weight pressed behind me. "What's wrong?" he said. "You mute or something?" Kira's eyes moved then. Not her head, not her body, just her eyes, sliding to the side. In the reflection of the rain-streaked window, she caught the shapes behind us, boots, hands, restless energy. Her pupils widened slightly, adjusting, cataloging. Her breathing paused for a fraction of a second, then resumed exactly as before. That pause mattered. It wasn't fear, it was calculation. I felt it through the contact between us, the same way I always did, a quiet readiness, coiled and contained. She was waiting not for danger, but for direction. She would not act without it. That was the rule, that was the bond. The bus hit a pothole, jolting everyone forward. Someone laughed again, louder this time, riding the moment. A shove followed, not hard, but deliberate enough to announce intent. My shoulders rocked forward slightly, then settled back. Kira adjusted instantly, shifting her weight to maintain alignment with my legs, her body staying close without touching anyone else. Her tail remained still, her mouth stayed closed, but the air around her changed. It always did. People think dogs growl when they're serious. They don't. The most dangerous dogs grow quiet. A man across the aisle watched us now. His eyes moved from my face to Kira, lingering a little longer there. Something in her stillness unsettled him. He looked away. Behind us impatience grew. "Man's scared of his own dog," someone muttered. "Probably needs it to feel tough. If only they knew." Kira's ear twitched again, catching the shift in tone. Her muscles tightened just enough that I could feel it under my palm. Not action, preparation. She was reading me as much as them, waiting for the smallest change in my breathing, the slightest tension in my hand. I kept my breath even. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the roof, blurring the city into streaks of light and shadow. The bus felt smaller now, like a sealed container carrying pressure it wasn't designed to hold. Every stoplight stretched longer, every second weighed more. They still saw a quiet man. They still saw a dog. They didn't see the restraint it took for her to remain seated when instinct told her exactly how fast things could go wrong. They didn't see the intelligence in her eyes, the loyalty that kept her still. They didn't see the truth resting inches from their boots, trained, controlled, and completely aware. Kira exhaled slowly, deliberately. I matched it, and in that shared breath, in that fragile suspended moment, it was clear. This story would not be about noise or bravado. It would be about discipline, about patience, about a line that had not yet been crossed, but was getting closer with every mile the bus carried us forward. The night outside kept moving. Inside, something was waiting. Kira did not experience time the way people did. For her the past didn't sit neatly behind her. It lived in her muscles, in the way her weight settled evenly across all four paws, in how her ears stayed half-turned even when her eyes faced forward. Memory for her wasn't a story, it was sensation, pressure, scent, sound. The bus swayed left, then right, and with it came the familiar vibration that reminded her of patrol vehicles, of long nights riding silently beside me while the city slept with one eye open. Diesel exhaust seeped through the vents, sharp and oily, and her nose catalogued it without effort. Old oil, wet rubber, human fear, faint but present. Alcohol, stronger. Aggression always carried a smell bitter, unbalanced, careless. She knew it well. Her body remained still, but inside she was working. She counted footsteps by rhythm, not number. One dragged his heel, one shifted too often, one stood too close, his balance off, his breathing uneven. She marked them without turning her head, using reflections, shadows, the slight change in air when someone leaned forward. These were skills learned, not instinctive, earned through repetition and correction, through quiet praise and long hours of discipline. Her training had begun long before she ever wore a harness. She remembered the kennel first, not as a place but as a feeling. Cold concrete, echoing barks, the constant tension of waiting. She had been young but not small, already too alert for comfort, too observant to relax. People passed her cage every day. Some stopped, most didn't. She learned early that attention was unpredictable, that patience was safer than hope. Then there was me. She remembered my smell before my face, soap, leather and something steady underneath it all. No rush, no sharpness. When I crouched in front of her, I didn't reach through the bars right away. I waited. That had mattered. When our eyes met, I didn't look away first, neither did she. From that moment on, everything changed slowly. Training was not gentle, but it was fair. She learned commands not through fear but clarity. Sit meant sit, always. Stay meant stay, even when the world moved. Her body learned control before speed, stillness before force. She failed sometime, so did I, but we corrected, adjusted, learned together. On the bus, her body remembered all of it. A sudden laugh snapped her attention back to the present. Louder now, closer. One of the men leaned into the aisle, his knee brushing the edge of my seat. Kira felt the shift in weight through the floor before she saw it in the reflection. Her muscles tightened, microscopic adjustments stacking on top of each other. She did not growl. Growling was a warning. Warnings were only given when allowed. Her eyes flicked up to me for half a sec. Not a plea, not a question, a check-in. Was this still restraint or had the parameters changed? My hand remained steady on her neck. My breathing stayed slow. Not yet. The bus stopped abruptly. Brakes hissed. A new passenger stumbled on, shaking rain from his jacket. The door closed again, sealing the air tighter. Kira noted the brief distraction, the way attention scattered and then refocused. Unstable energy always fractured before it consolidated. One of them kicked the side of my seat this time, harder. The metal rang. Kira's ears came fully forward now, her focus narrowing. Her heart rate increased, but only slightly. Training had taught her how much energy to spend, how to ration it. Panic wasted strength. She had no use for panic. Her mind replayed drills without conscious effort. Guard position, intercept distance, angle of approach. Bite was never first. Control was. Hold, wait, release only on command. Always release. She knew the shape of my voice when I was calm. She knew it when I was under pressure. She listened now not for volume, but tone. Micro change. Tension lived in the quiet places. You deaf? Someone snapped. A hand reached forward suddenly, fingers brushing the air above Kira's head. Not touching, but close enough to invade space. That changed. Kira shifted her weight, rising just enough that her shoulders lifted an inch off the floor. Her body did not turn, her head did not snap, but the line of her spine straightened, and the air around her seemed to harden. Several people noticed. The man across the aisle stiffened. The woman near the front inhaled sharply. One of the men behind us stopped laughing. Kira's eyes locked onto the reflection of the hand. Her lips did not curl, her teeth remained hidden, but her focus was absolute, and something ancient and precise moved behind her gaze. Not rage, not excitement, but certainty. She knew what hands could do. She remembered hands that shook, hands that reached too fast, hands that struck, that dropped weapons, that trembled when her shadow fell across them. She remembered hands raised in surrender, palms open, breath held. She had learned restraint from me. I had learned courage from her. My fingers pressed slightly into her fur, not a command, a boundary. She froze again instantly, as if rooted to the floor. The man's hand withdrew, uncertain now, the moment broken. The bus rolled on. Rain hammered harder against the roof, drowning out smaller sounds. The city outside was a blur of light and motion, indifferent to the tension coiled inside this narrow space. Kira remained upright now, no longer seated fully, her posture alert, but controlled. She did not take her eyes off the reflections. The men whispered among themselves. Their confidence had shifted, subtly, but unmistakably. They had felt it, the change in energy, the moment when the dog stopped being an accessory and became something else. Kira exhaled slowly through her nose. She was not angry. She was ready, and she would remain that way, as long as I asked her to, balanced between stillness and force, memory and present, waiting for the one thing that mattered more than instinct.
My voice. The bus surged forward into the rain, carrying us all closer to a moment. None of them yet understood. But Kira already did. The bus slowed as it climbed the hill, engine straining, every vibration drawn out and heavy. Outside, rain pooled along the curb, swallowing reflections of streetlights, until the city looked submerged. Inside, the air felt tighter than before, compressed by breath held too long. Kira felt the shift before anyone spoke. It wasn't a sound this time, it was intention, a tightening of bodies behind us. The subtle coordination that happens when cruelty grows bored of testing and decides to act. She sensed it in the way footsteps aligned, in the pause between laughter, in the sudden quiet that meant a choice had been made. Her muscles coiled, not outwardly, not visibly, but deep, close to the bone. She remained upright, shoulders lifted, posture perfect. Her gaze stayed fixed on the reflection in the glass, where movements betrayed what faces tried to hide. One of the men leaned forward again, closer than before. His balance was off, his anger was rising faster than his confidence. "Move your damn dog," he said. The word damn landed heavier than the others had, sharper. Kira registered the tone, the pitch, the threat wrapped inside it. Her ears angled forward fully now. She could hear his heart rate in the rhythm of his voice, fast, uneven. The smell of adrenaline seeped into the air, metallic and raw. I didn't answer. My silence wasn't defiance, it was control, and Kira felt it, mirrored it, anchored herself to it the way she always had. She waited for instruction, even as instinct whispered possibilities into her nerves. The man's foot came forward. It didn't strike her, not yet, but it nudged the space beside her ribs, close enough to invade, close enough to threaten. The intention mattered more than the contact. For Kira, this was no longer background noise. This was engagement. Her head turned then, slowly, deliberately, not snapping, not lunging. She rotated just enough to bring him into full view. Her eyes met his for the first time, dark, steady, unblinking. The bus light caught them, reflecting something that made his breath hitch before he realized why. She didn't bare her teeth. She didn't growl. She simply looked. That was when the bus went quiet. Not fully. Engines still hummed. Rain still drummed. But the human noise faltered. Laughter died in throats. Words stalled halfway out. Even those who hadn't been watching before were watching now. Kira's stare held weight. Not aggression, but certainty. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't bluffing. Her body language spoke in a language older than words, and the man understood it instinctively, even if he couldn't explain why. Still, pride pushed him forward. He reached out, faster this time, fingers splayed, aiming not to strike, but to dominate, to grab, to prove something to the others behind him. That was the moment. Kira moved before I did, but not without me. My hand tightened on her collar, fingers pressing into the familiar leather, not to restrain her, but to connect, to ground her. My voice came low, calm, threaded with authority. Enough. The word wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Kira's body surged upward in one smooth, controlled motion. Not a leap, a run. Her front paws planted firmly on the floor, her chest broad and still, her head level with the man's waist. She placed herself between him and me, with practiced precision, angling her body to block without striking. Her teeth remained hidden, but her mouth opened just enough for a breath, and the sound that came with it was not a growl. It was a warning breath, a controlled release of air that carried power without chaos. Trained, measured, final. The man stumbled back a step, caught off guard not by violence, but by restraint. His heel hit the edge of a seat. Someone cursed. Another grabbed his arm. "Yo, man." Too late. Kira advanced one step, only one. Her eyes never left his. Her ears stayed forward. Her body stayed coiled, perfectly balanced, ready but contained. She did not bark. She did not snap. She waited. I stood then, slowly, deliberately, letting the movement register. I unzipped my jacket just enough for the badge to catch the overhead light, gold flashing once, unmistakable. "She's a police dog," I said quietly. The words dropped into the bus like a stone into water. Ripples spread fast. The man froze. The others went still. Fear arrived. Not explosive, not loud, but cold and sudden, the kind that drains bravado in seconds. They saw it then, not just the badge, Not just me standing taller now. Shoulders squared. They saw Kira for what she was, not a pet, not a threat. Looking for an excuse, a professional. Kira felt the shift instantly. Fear had a smell, and it had replaced aggression in the air. Her breathing slowed again. Her muscles easing just enough to show she was listening. Still under control, she did not relax completely, not yet.
"Sit," I said. She obeyed immediately, lowering herself back down with grace, her body folding into position without taking her eyes off the men. The discipline in the movement spoke louder than any show of force could have. This was not chaos, this was command. The bus driver glanced in the mirror, eyes wide, then nodded once, sharp and understanding. The bus pulled to the side of the road with a hiss of brakes. "You," I said, pointing calmly. "Off." No one argued. The men shuffled toward the door, eyes avoiding Kira now, shoulders hunched, their earlier noise gone. As they passed, Kira tracked them with her gaze, ensuring distance, ensuring compliance. She did not lunge, she did not snap, she simply watched until the door closed behind them and the rain swallowed their silhouettes whole. The bus exhaled. Someone whispered, "Good dog." Kira did not react. Praise was not hers to take yet. She turned her head slowly back toward me, eyes lifting just enough to meet mine. The question was there, not spoken, not even thought in words. "Is it over?" I rested my hand on her neck again, warmth meeting warmth. My voice softened. "It's over." Her body relaxed, then not collapsing, not slackening, but releasing tension the way a professional does when a job is complete. She lay down at my feet once more, posture still perfect, eyes half-lidded but alert. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, order had returned. And Kira, calm and quiet again, rested her head on her paws, having crossed the line without ever breaking it. The bus didn't move for a few seconds after the doors closed. It simply idled there at the curb, engine rumbling low, as if even the machine needed a moment to understand what had just passed through it. Rain slid down the windshield in heavy sheets, blurring the city into slow-moving shadows. Inside, no one spoke. The space that had once been crowded with noise now felt hollowed out, like something dangerous had been removed and taken with it. Kira lay at my feet, her body aligned, her chin resting lightly on her paws. From a distance, she looked ordinary again. Just a dog resting after a disturbance, but I knew better. Her eyes remained open, tracking reflections, monitoring movement. Her breathing was steady, but her awareness had not dimmed. It never did all at once. The sever cleared his throat. In the mirror our eyes met briefly. He nodded again, a quiet gesture of acknowledgement, then eased the bus back into traffic. The doors hissed shut, and the city resumed its slow crawl forward. Only then did the murmurs begin. Soft voices, half sentences. Someone let out a shaky laugh that wasn't humor so much as relief. A woman across the aisle wiped at her eyes and stared out the window as if nothing inside the bus existed anymore. A man near the back leaned forward slightly, peering down at Kira with something like awe, then quickly looked away when her eyes flicked up in his direction. She felt it, of course. The shift in attention, the way fear had turned into respect, then into curiosity. She ignored it all. She had been trained to disappear when her work was done. I slid back into my seat slowly, careful not to break the rhythm she had settled into. My hand stayed on her neck, fingers resting just behind her ear, a place that meant safety, not reward. Kira's eyes closed for a moment, just one, then opened again, vigilant but calm. Her body remembered moments like this. After action, silence was its own kind of terrain. Sometimes it was heavier than the confrontation itself. She had learned not to drop her guard too quickly, not to mistake quiet for peace. She listened now to the subtle sounds, the hum of the engine, the soft creak of seats, the rain tapping a steady rhythm above it all. Nothing sharp, nothing rising. Good. She exhaled slowly, the breath warming my ankle. That was her way of releasing the last thread of tension, letting it unravel without losing shape. I felt my own shoulders drop in response, the delayed realization that I was safe, that everyone was. We rode like that for several stops. The bus lights flickered as we passed under an overpass. Kira's reflection appeared briefly in the darkened window, ears relaxed now, eyes softer, posture unchanged. She looked almost peaceful, but there was still an intelligence behind her gaze that never fully slept. I thought of all the times she had done this before, contained chaos, prevented harm without spilling blood or breaking bones. Those moments never made headlines, they never trended. They ended quietly, with people walking away, with no one fully understanding how close things had come to going wrong. Kira preferred it that way. At the next stop, a young boy climbed on with his mother, shaking rain from his hair. He noticed Kira immediately, eyes wide. He tugged at his mother's sleeve and whispered something. She shook her head quickly, but smiled down at him. "It's okay," she said softly. "Just don't touch." The boy nodded, watching from a distance as if observing something sacred. Kira sensed him, but did not look. Her attention stayed forward, neutral, non-threatening. Trust was built on predictability. As the bus moved on, my thoughts drifted not backward into memory, but sideways into understanding. Kira had changed me in ways no human ever could. She had taught me the power of restraint, the strength in waiting. In a world that mistook volume for authority, she embodied something quieter and far more dangerous when necessary. She didn't act out of anger. She acted out of clarity. I reached down and pressed my forehead briefly against the top of her head, breathing in the clean, familiar scent of her fur beneath the lingering smell of rain. She didn't move, didn't react beyond a softening of her eyes. This was not affection in the way people imagined it. It was communion. Another stop, more people off, fewer on. The bus felt lighter now, not just in weight but in spirit. The threat was gone, and with it the tension that had wrapped itself around every breath. Kira sensed it too. Her eyes began to drift closed more often, her vigilance shifting from sharp focus to background awareness. Still she stayed ready. She always did. When our stop finally came, I stood slowly and clipped her leash back into place. The sound was small but precise. Kira rose immediately, fluid and controlled, aligning herself at my side. Without looking down, her body pressed briefly against my leg. A check-in, a question answered. We moved down the aisle together. As we passed, people made space without being asked. No one reached out. No one spoke, but their eyes followed her, followed us, with something like gratitude. One man nodded. A woman whispered thank you under her breath. Kira didn't acknowledge any of it. Outside the rain had softened to a mist, the streetlights glowing gently through it. The bus doors opened, releasing us into the night. The city smelled clean now, washed and quiet. The earlier tension dissolved into damp air and distant traffic. Kira paused at the curb, waiting. I stepped down beside her, boots splashing lightly in a shallow puddle. When I gave the smallest nod, she moved forward, confident, calm, her tail low and relaxed. The bus pulled away behind us, its lights shrinking into the rain. For everyone on board it would be a story told later, an unsettling moment, a close call, a good dog. For Kira it was simply work. And as we walked into the night together, her shoulder brushing my leg in steady rhythm, I was reminded once more of a truth she lived by, without question. Real power doesn't announce itself. It waits. Only one chapter remained, but the heart of the story was already complete, walking beside me in the rain. The rain followed us down the sidewalk, lighter now, almost respectful, as if the night itself had decided to lower its voice. Streetlights glowed through the mist, turning puddles into scattered mirrors that broke beneath our steps. Kira walked at my side, her pace measured, her shoulder brushing my leg every few strides. A quiet rhythm that grounded me more than words ever could.
Her leash hung loose. That mattered. She didn't pull. She didn't lag. She didn't scan wildly the way nervous dogs do after confrontation. Her head stayed level, ears relaxed, tail low and natural. To anyone passing by, she looked like nothing more than a well-trained German shepherd on an evening walk. No one would guess what she had just carried inside her. How much restraint, how much calculation, how much trust. But I always knew in the small ways, the way her breathing synced to mine, the way her paw steps adjusted automatically when I slowed, the way her eyes occasionally flicked up to check my face. Not for instruction, but for reassurance that we were still aligned, that the world made sense again. The city around us moved on. Indifferent, cars passed, tires hissing against wet asphalt. Somewhere a siren wailed briefly, then faded. Life didn't pause for moments like the one on the bus. It never did. That was something Kira had taught me early. Chaos wasn't an event. It was a constant. Control was the choice you made inside it. We reached the small park, near my apartment. Its benches slick with rain. Its trees dripping quietly into the grass. I stopped there, under the halo of a single street lamp, and unclipped her leash. "Break," I said softly. The word changed her completely. Kira shook, a full body release that started at her head, and rolled down her spine to her tail, shedding tension like water. Her ears flopped, her posture loosened, and for the first time that night, she looked like she trotted a few steps ahead, sniffed the ground, circled once, then came back and sat in front of me, eyes bright. Only then did I kneel. My hands went to her face, cupping her cheeks, thumbs pressing gently into the familiar places just below her eyes. Her fur was damp and cool now, her skin warm beneath it. She leaned into the touch without hesitation, her tail thumping softly against the wet grass. "Good girl," I whispered. This time, the praise was hers. She sighed, a deep, contented sound that came from somewhere behind her ribs, and rested her forehead briefly against my chest. In that moment, the weight I'd been carrying finally shifted, not gone, but shared. It always was with her. I thought about the men from the bus, not with anger but distance. They would wake up the next day with nothing more than a story they half believed themselves. Maybe they'd laugh it off, maybe they'd tell it louder than it happened, turning fear into bravado. Or maybe quietly, privately, something would stick, a memory of eyes that didn't blink, of power that didn't need to shout. Kira didn't think about them at all. Her world was smaller and truer. It was me. It was the ground beneath her paw. It was the invisible line she walked every day between force and restraint. She didn't resent the rules that bound her. She trusted them. She trusted me. That trust was everything. We sat there for a while, letting the night finish what it had started. The rain thinned until it was barely there, just a cool presence on the skin. The city breathed. Somewhere nearby, a dog barked once, distant and unconcerned. Eventually Kira stood and nudged my knee with her nose, eyes soft, question clear. "Home?" I smiled and rose, brushing dampness from my palms. "Yeah," I said. "Home." We walked the rest of the way in silence. Inside my apartment I toweled her off carefully, pressing the fabric into her fur the way she liked, slow and deliberate. She stood patiently, eyes half closed, savoring the routine. When I finished, she padded over to her bed, circled once, and collapsed with a groan of pure comfort. I watched her for a long moment. In sleep she looked younger somehow, less carved by responsibility. Her paws twitched once, chasing something only she could see. Maybe nothing, maybe memory. For her the line between past and present was thin, but it didn't trouble her. She trusted herself to handle whatever came. I turned off the lights and sat nearby, letting the quiet settle fully at last. People often talked about police dogs as weapons, as tools. They counted their bites, their takedowns, their strength. They missed the truth entirely. Kira wasn't powerful because she could hurt someone. She was powerful because she knew when not to. On that bus, surrounded by noise and cruelty, She had carried calm like a shield. She had waited when instinct screamed to act. She had crossed the line only when it mattered. And even then, she did it without chaos, without excess. That was her gift. As the city slept, and the rain finally stopped, I listened to her breathing slow and deepen, each rise and fall steady and sure. Tomorrow would bring another patrol, another ordinary day, layered over extraordinary responsibility. She would be ready. She always was. I reached out once more, and rested my hand lightly on her side, feeling the quiet strength there, the life that had chosen to walk beside mine. Outside, somewhere, another bus rolled through the night, this time, safe, and at my feet a German shepherd slept calm, loyal and whole, having reminded the world, without a single bark, what true authority looks like when it finally stands up and then, just as quietly, lies back down.